Welcome to Staying Connected, a podcast where I talk to people about their stories with VEDS, Marfan, Loeys-Dietz, and related vascular and aortic connective tissue conditions. The views, information, and opinions in this podcast are those of the individuals involved, and the information presented does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services. Hey everyone! Today we're going to hear from Betsy Matarrita, who is joining to share her story of growing up with Marfan syndrome and meeting others and getting involved in the Marfan Foundation community and programs over the last few years. If you like this show and want to help our communities raise awareness of VEDS, Marfan, and Loeys-Dietz, consider joining my Patreon. This show wouldn't be possible without the support of my subscribers there, so if you're already supporting the show, thank you. And don't forget to share it with people you know to help us raise awareness. Let's get into the show. Hey, Betsy, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast to share your story with Marfan syndrome. It was so great meeting you in person a couple times now, but I feel like I got to know you a little bit better at this last conference last year, and it was so100ful. Do you want to introduce yourself to people who don't know you?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure. And, let me introduce myself. My name is Betsy Matarrita. I'm 35 years old. I am from Costa Rica, actually born and raised, and I live here right now. And I have Marfan syndrome. I was diagnosed when I was 4 or 5 years old.
And how did that diagnosis come about?
Well, from what my mom and dad have said, because I was too young. I cannot remember anything but going to the hospital regularly. The pediatrician, he saw some symptoms or signs like the long arms, the long legs. So he prescribed some additional tests, and he sent me to the cardiologist. And that's when they found like the aortic situation going on there, and as well as a mitral prolapse. And that's when they sent me to genetics. And although they didn't run like a genetic testing or anything, because that was 1990. I guess medicine was not that that great as it is right now. But the doctor, well, thankfully, it seems like here in Costa Rica, doctors are very aware of the syndrome. And what my mom and dad said is that we got into the room, and immediately, just by looking at me, the doctor knew that I had Marfan syndrome. So additional to the cardiology testing, he sent me to the eye doctor. And that's when they found out that the lens dislocation and all of that, like, okay, yes, you have Marfan, because that's the one thing that it's like unique for Marfan syndrome. And that's how we found out.
So you were like 4 or 5 years old?
Yes.
And did they do anything for that lens dislocation right away? Like, were both of your lenses dislocated?
They were not dislocated, but they knew that they were not like in place, like in normal, like quote unquote normal person. So they didn't perform any surgery or anything. They just prescribed me glasses that I remember I hated, because were this like super, like with huge glasses I didn't like them, but it's fine. It's in the past, but yeah. If I could show you pictures, I look really funny. I look at those pictures and I'm like, oh my. But yeah.
We should exchange glasses pictures, because I had strabismus when I was younger, and I had big, thick glasses, like from the age of 2.
Yes, I hated those. Yeah. I don't know, and they will take pictures of you with the flash, and it was just like my pictures from when I was like 5. All my like child years, they look terrible because of the glasses, but it's fine.
So So you started getting monitored by cardiology.
Yes, almost immediately. Like twice a year, I will go to the cardiologist and get the echoes. And of course, they put me on medication. So I think that's been key in my case, in my specific case, because since I was diagnosed, I would say at a young age, I've been under medication for my heart condition, and I haven't had to go under the cardiac surgery yet. We know that's going to come sometime maybe, but not yet. And it's because of that, of the early diagnosis.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. Yeah. That's really wonderful. What are you mentioned the long arms and legs and the lenses being kind of slightly different than a quote unquote normal person. Yeah. So mitral valve prolapse. What other signs of Marfan syndrome did you have?
Definitely a scoliosis. That's another thing they noticed. Well, yeah, they sent me to an orthopedic doctor. So they noticed that. And they also ran some tests for my pulmonary testing, but I am not affected at that level. So it was just like mostly physical features like long arms, long legs, flat feet, the long fingers, like that you can do this. Well, I'm doing, I don't know if people can see me, but like doing this and all those Marfan basic testing that the doctors do when they meet you. And then, well, the eye situation, and then the mitral and aortic condition, and finally the scoliosis.
So what did they do to deal with the scoliosis? Was that a really severe case of scoliosis?
Yes, it was very severe, to the point that they recommended for me to use a corset to try to correct it without surgery, trying to postpone the surgery because they wanted to wait for me to grow to a level that when they performed the surgery, I wouldn't look like so different. Because of Marfan syndrome, we have long arms, long legs. So we needed to let the torso to grow as well, because if they will perform the surgery on a 6-year-old, and they will put the rods on a 6-year-old torso, and that will make me look really weird, or different, let's say, not weird, because I will have like a really, really short torso and then long legs and long arms. So they were trying to postpone it. So they recommended the corset. Unfortunately, those weren't made here in Costa Rica. So we had to travel to the US to get them done. And that was a whole journey because we didn't have a visa. We didn't speak English, not a word, like maybe just hi, hello, thank you, please. And we didn't have the means. Like, we didn't really have money to cover expenses for 3 flight tickets and accommodations and all of that. So I remember, and again, I was just a kid, but I still have like memories of my mom and dad trying to figure the situation to make it happen. Because, I mean, I guess when you're a parent, you just want the best for your kid. And so I remember that we will go to these TV channels and to the chain restaurants, and they were trying to get sponsorships everywhere. A lot of friends helped. Also, I remember my dad going to the U.S. Embassy to try to figure it out, like all the requirements and how to do it. And, well, they did a great job because they were able to secure a couple of sponsorships. And also we got the US visa. It was like a 3-month visa just for medical treatment. And that's how we traveled to Tennessee. I think the name of the clinic was like Feel Our Clinic or something like that. And that was my first trip to the US when I was like 5. I think that was when I was 7. And we stayed there for like a week doing all the prosthetics and all the procedures. And I remember my dad with this recording machine, like the big ones, the really old ones, recording everything in cassettes.
Oh.
Because, and we still have those cassettes. And well, like I said, we didn't speak a word of English. Thankfully, there was a nurse at the clinic that spoke a little Spanish. She was not that fluent, but she was able to at least translate the basics of what the doctors were talking about and suggesting and explaining and all of that. And like years later, now that I speak, let's say, like a good English, my mom became an English teacher, so she's really good at it. When we felt ready, we went back to those cassettes to listen to everything. And it was like, I mean, now we can understand. And it was, okay, we did it. We did it the right way. But it's like, I told my mom, like, I don't know how you did that. Like, flying to another country where you didn't speak the language for a medical situation, and it's pretty serious. Like, what if they are not translating it correctly and you do something incorrect, or and I don't know, I guess it's just like what drives you when you know your kid needs something. But that was like the big Marf experience of my life, like traveling to another country to get a corset to try to correct the scoliosis.
That's really incredible that your parents were able to raise that money and go, and that there happened to be somebody there who spoke a little Spanish. And is that before? Because now I think hospitals have, I mean, this is like where I am oblivious because it's not something I use and I should be more knowledgeable on it. Mm-hmm. But was that before interpreters were just required to be available? Like, I think now they have phone numbers they can call to get a translator.
No, and I mean, now that we were in Chicago and I was volunteering with this family that only spoke Spanish, we thought that they will need me to translate information, but they didn't, because the hospital have like these computers that translate everything in real time. And I remember I was talking to Dr. Liang. I know most people in this podcast know who he is, but I was talking to him and I was like, this would have been so helpful when I came to the US, because it literally, you say one word and it's automatically translated like in a normal conversation.
That's amazing.
It's great.
That's amazing.
That's why IA is doing, I guess.
Yeah, that's great. It's so great that your parents were able to make that situation work and get you the care that you needed. Did that corset help? Did you end up needing surgery later?
Yeah, it helped. I got it when I was, like I said, 6 or 7. And I went for the surgery when I was 9. So I had to use it for 2 years, and it corrected a lot. But they decided that it was time because they didn't want to compromise some organs. So we went for that surgery when I was 9.
And how did that surgery go?
Well, that was my first major surgery experience. And I have to mention a lot of things that happened. First of all, I was admitted. I remember it was Sunday. It was a Sunday morning. I was admitted, and we have here in Costa Rica, we have universal healthcare. So when you get admitted into a hospital, you don't really have your own room. It's like a big room with let's say 10 patients that belong to the same, let's say if it's cardiology, there will be 10 patients for cardiology. If it's orthopedics, then 10 patients for orthopedics and stuff like that. So I got admitted. We went to that room. They gave me my bed. They assigned my bed. And everything was fine. I was with my mom, with my dad. And then at night, my mom had to go to work. So the plan was that my dad will stay with me overnight and help me to get ready for the surgery the next day. But we didn't know that the hospital had some policies back then, and I'm talking 1998, that stated that fathers couldn't stay, only moms.
Whoa.
So I ended up staying my first night at the hospital alone, like a 9-year-old alone in the hospital. wake up the next day and get ready for surgery all by myself when I was 9.
Oh
I remember going to the bathroom. They gave me like, I call this the, I forgot how to say in English, but like the special like gala outfit for surgery. The surgery gear, like official, like the gala gear.
Like a gown?
Yeah. But I call it like a fancy operation gear, just for fun. But I remember going to the room, getting a shower, putting on that gown, and then coming back to my bed and waiting for the doctors and hoping that my mom will make it on time to see her before I went into the operation room. I mean, thankfully she did. And we talked and we prayed and we did all the things that you normally do before surgery. But that was not wrecking. Like at the time, I was just like, okay, yeah, I'll get ready, blah, blah, blah. But now that I see it as an adult, I'm like, that's a really hard thing to do for a 9-year-old.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
In my first...
That is a super hard thing.
And in the first major surgery in my life. So, but yeah, that happened. Then the surgery happened. It was like a 7-hour surgery. Well, they divided the surgery into 2 phases. The first phase was to get bone grafts for the second surgery. So that first surgery, it was like 7 hours long. So my parents had to wait at the hospital with all the stress, because we have a heart condition and being under anesthesia for so long can be really risky and all of that. But fortunately, everything went well. However, I caught a bacteria in the operation room that put me into intensive care for almost 2 weeks. I cannot remember much from that time. I just remember that my bed was next to a window that was like, I had like the view from like the main street, and I could hear like the birds in the morning, and I could hear like the cars, like ambulances and all of that. I have some memories of doctors coming in and moving me and doing like tests or taking x-rays, but it's just like, it's very little what I remember. I remember seeing my mom and dad getting in the room and saying hi and like, visiting. But my mom says that it was really critical, that I was not doing well, and that there was a point in which she got in the room and she basically, how can I say this? Well, she had a conversation with God, in which she was like, if you have to take her, just take her. It's fine. I don't want to see her suffering. I don't want her in pain. And this is not fair. She's just a kid. I'm surprised I'm not tearing up because normally I do. But it was a very stressful time for them. Fortunately, after the 2 weeks, I overcame the bacteria and I was sent to another room. It was not like the normal room. It was one in the middle. And there I started to get better and better until I was just ready for the second surgery. That one went perfectly fine. No bacteria, no nothing. And because of that situation, I ended up staying at the hospital for almost a month. So it was fun. I remember it was a long time. But I made a lot of friends. The hospital had different activities for us to do. And I was a picky eater. So I wouldn't eat the food at the hospital. So the doctors gave my mom and dad permission to bring me food from outside. And I was the only kid eating burgers and fries and pizza and dessert, all of that. So all the kids loved me because my mom and dad will give them something from what they brought to me. So it was fun. And after the second surgery, I think I left the hospital 2 or 3 days after the second surgery. I had to wear a cast for 4 months. The surgery was in March, and I wore the cast April, May, June, and July. And I remember because they took it off one day before my birthday. They took it off on July. Yeah. So it was like, yes. And I had to go to school, and I had to do like normal life wearing that cast for 4 months.
I want to pause and just, before we talk about that cast experience and what that was like in school, I just like want to give your mom this like big virtual hug. Like that is so challenging and heartbreaking and has to be so hard as a parent. So, I mean, kudos to both of your parents and big hugs to both of your parents. That had to be very difficult to get through.
Yeah. And well, more so because I think I didn't say that at the beginning when I introduced myself, but I am an only child. So that adds up to that. They were willing to just let me go because they didn't want to see me suffering. So, yeah, I'll let them know. It's not a topic they like to go into. But yes, I'll give her the hug.
Thank you. What was that experience like wearing the cast at school? I mean, is that 5th grade? Is it the same?
Yeah, I think, fifth grade. I didn't love it. I mean, at the beginning, it was fun because I was like this cool girl wearing like a cast and everyone wanted to sign it and, all the normal stuff things do at school when someone has a cast. But it was hot. It was itchy. It was really hard. Like getting a shower. I couldn't get a shower, like a proper shower for 4 months. I remember that my mom will wash my hair in the sink at the kitchen because I couldn't do it in the shower. Like wearing clothes was almost impossible. I will wear like just pants, sweaters. Of course, in school they gave me permission to do that because the uniform wouldn't fit. I couldn't play as usual with my friends in school, so that was a challenge. And it was not the norm because even though I have this condition, I was raised in a way that I will do anything. They never put any limits on me. They let me put those limits or set those boundaries. So I was like, I mean, at the beginning it was cool, but then it was like, okay, I want it off. Like, I can't do this anymore. And it was summer here in Costa Rica, so it was like hot, humid. So it was a challenge. I wouldn't recommend.
Yeah. So you got to play sports and things growing up.
Oh, yeah.
With Marfan.
Yes. Yeah. I did all the normal things. Like I would play basketball and I was good at it. I would play kickball, volleyball, soccer. In sports, well, my mom and dad, they were always very outspoken about my condition. So they always will ask for some time with the teachers to let them know, more so with the sports one, with the sports teacher. And they were always like, she knows she has it, but we don't want to, like, we want her to at least try and see if she can do it and see if she can take it. If not, she's going to let you know. And we hope that you understand. And that's how we managed it throughout my whole school, high school. So I would do everything possible. I was good at basketball. I really like it. I haven't played in a long time, but I was really good. I loved the skating. Haven't done it in a while. But yeah, I had a lot of fun. I will ride roller coasters, like super fun and easy. Just me living life and my mom and dad waiting for me to come out alive of it. But that is something, I know that that's hard for some parents, and I totally understand because, I mean, it's scary. But I always say, like, we as patients, we know our bodies and we know what we can take and what we can't. So, and that's something that I really commend my parents for, because they never treated me or put any boundaries on me. Like, they were like, you just live your life. Unless it was something like really, really risky, they will tell me like, no, Betsy, that's not going to happen. But if I'm honest with you, if you ask me, did that happen? I cannot recall a time when they told me, no, you're not going to do that. They mostly let me do my thing until now that I'm 35.
That's wonderful. And it had to be so hard watching you get on a roller coaster and then
Yes.
come out, like wait for you to come out.
Yeah. And it's always fun because, well, my parents are divorced, and then my dad got married again. And I don't like to call her my stepmom. To me, she's just like whoever. Like, her name is Carla. So I'm like, Carla, of course she knows about my condition. And one time we went to the amusement park and she was in charge. And she was so scared. Like, she called my dad, like, she's getting in this roller coaster. Can she do that? I'm just scared. I don't want her to, like, I don't know if something happens. How am I going to call her mom? And she was so scared. And then I was like, nothing's going to happen. Everything is fine. I've done this 100 times. But I understand. I mean, it was new to her, but yeah.
So did you have any friends growing up with Marfan syndrome?
No.
Where you were?
No.
No,
I never met anyone with Marfan syndrome until recently.
So before we dive into that, what was like young adulthood like growing up with this?
Being honest, I truly think that I've lived a normal life. I always, like I said before, I always knew my limitations. So when it comes to like work decisions or career-wise, I always knew that I wouldn't be able to work at a restaurant or in retail or like anything that required me to be on my feet for more than 20 minutes because my body wouldn't take it. So I always knew that if I wanted to like have a successful life and career, I really, really needed to get educated and to do something to get an office job, basically, that will allow me to be seated and be comfortable, right? So in my like teenage years, I can say it was pretty normal. I went to high school. I have friends. I went to parties. I did all the fun stuff. I didn't have many boyfriends because I don't know. I guess I was not that popular. And I was being really honest with you. I was not really happy, or I didn't feel comfortable in the body I was living in because I guess it was hard for me to accept it at the time. Like, even though I lived a normal life, it was always like, well, I look different. I can use the same clothing, or maybe that doesn't look as good on me on this other girl, like comparison. And I mean, at the time, everything was different. Like bullying and stuff that didn't exist. Oh, well, it did exist, but there were not as much awareness as it is right now. So that was hard to deal with. I never had experienced like a really hardcore bullying situation, to be honest with you. Maybe just people staring at you. But when that happened, my mom always told me to, like, if they are staring at you, just smile. And I was like, okay. So, and it's funny because I've always done it. Like, even right now, if someone is staring at me, I just look at them and I'm like, yes, can I help? Like, just with a smile. But yeah, I think I've lived a pretty normal life. I started working when I was like 20, 21. And also because I wanted independence, because I know my mom and dad are not going to be here forever. So I wanted to like be independent in that sense. And all my friends know about my condition. Even my employers have always been really very open about it. Of course, it's not the first thing you're going to hear about me, right? You're going to hear all my accomplishments and all my experience. And then once you give me the job, I'll let you know that I have this condition and that I might need some time off to go to appointments, or that I will need some time to stretch, or And it's worked for me. I've never had like a bad situation with an employer. They've been really, really
That's
understandable about it.
Yeah. And you've had surgery on your eyes since then. Yeah? You want to talk about that?
Yes, when I was 17, the doctors made the decision to perform the eye surgery with Marfan syndrome. For those who don't know, since it's a connective tissue disorder, there is a possibility for your lenses to detach without any warning. So they decided that it was better to perform the surgery just as preventive measures, right? So I went into, and they do one eye first and then the other eye, right? Because they don't want to leave you blind for, I don't know, a month. So they performed the surgery on my left eye first. They basically removed the lens from that eye and put a permanent lens, which is basically, in easy words, it's like a contact lens that is put it in your eye with laser and all that. So they did that with the left eye. Then we wait a month for the left eye to get recovered. Then they performed the surgery on the right eye. They basically did the same thing, and everything went well. So I got my glasses, my new glasses, and I went to high school, and everything went well. Then when I was, I want to think 25 years old, almost 10 years after the first surgery, one day I was just watching TV, and all of a sudden, my left eye was blurry. And I was like, what happened? So scratch my eye, normal thing to do, not the right thing to do though. I was like, okay, this is not normal. So I called my mom and dad and I was like, hey, this is happening. I think we should go to the doctor. So we went to the doctor and he was like, well, it seems that the lens detached. And I was like, okay, didn't we do the surgery to avoid this in the first place? And he was like, yeah, I mean, that shouldn't happen, but it happens. In your case, it's a risk because connective tissue, so like it's a risk. And I was like, okay. So we performed a second surgery. Basically, they removed that lens, that put in a new one. Everything went well, perfect. 3 months passed by. The same happened with the right eye. And it's important to mention that by that time, I was already working. So I had to ask for like leave of absence and all that process. Thank God my employer was very understandable. And again, here in Costa Rica, because we have universal care, is not a big deal. Actually, you're still getting paid, not the full amount of money, but you're getting some money. So it's not as bad. So yeah, that happened with the right eye. And so another surgery, and my right eye is my strong eye. So basically without my right eye, I can't read, I can't drive, I can't do anything. So that was pretty much a emergency surgery.
Yeah.
So recovery went well. I went back to work. Everything was fine. And I want to say that like 2 or 3 years after those surgeries, once again, the left eye lens detached. So back then we went to the doctor again, like, why is this happening? And he was like, well, like I said, and like last time, it's normal. Right now, it's time for us to make a decision. Do we want to keep performing surgeries, or do we want to just remove that lens and you keep using contact lenses on that eye, plus your glasses? So we stop hurting your eye, we stop putting your life on hold, because that's basically what you have to do. So it's up to you. And I was like, well, yeah, it makes total sense. If we can fix it with contact lenses, let's do that, because I don't want to keep going into surgery every 2 or 3 years just because my lenses decided to detach randomly.
Yeah, unpredictable.
Yeah, very, like, what if I was driving and my right lens decides to detach? So yeah, we made that decision, and I think that was again like 8 years ago, and I've been wearing contact lenses on my left eye since then on top of my glasses, and it's worked perfectly.
Oh, that's wonderful that fixed it.
Yeah, and those are the, let's say, major surgeries that I've have to deal with as an adult. Scoliosis was major, but I was still a kid. So
So you haven't had to have a major surgery in like 8 years now, and hopefully for many, many years in the future. Because your aorta, you have not had to have your aorta surgery.
No. Well, I had my appendix removed, but I mean, that was major, but it's something that happens every day. So it was easy recovery, nothing really huge. But then like surgery is related to Marfan, yes, 7 years ago.
Yeah, that's good. Earlier in this interview, we talked about, I think, you didn't grow up knowing anybody else with Marfan syndrome, right?
Yes.
So when was the first time that you met somebody else with Marfan syndrome?
That was back in 2017 at my first conference in Atlanta. I'll never forget it.
So how did that happen?
How did that happen? That's a funny story. Well, at the time, I was traveling frequently from Dallas to Costa Rica for a personal situation. And it's interesting because I never felt the curiosity to meet anyone with Marfan syndrome, any other person. But when I was in Dallas, one day randomly, I was watching TV and I was like, I mean, it's the US. I'm pretty sure here is like something big, like a foundation or an organization, something. So I Google Marfan syndrome, and the first result that I got was a video for the Walk for Victory in Houston, which obviously makes sense. I was in Dallas, right? 4 hours away.
Yeah.
I remember that was, I want to say, November, end of 2016. And I watched this video of Owen Gray and his family, and they were promoting, I think it was the second Walk for Victory in Houston. And I was like, oh, this is so fun. Well, first of all, I saw Owen and I was like, oh my gosh, yes, he has Marfan. Like, there's other people like me out there, right? And some other people in the video as well, because they had the previous walk that year. And so within that video, there was contact information for the foundation. And that's how I reached out to them, to Kim Huddleston specifically. I still have those emails. And I explained my situation, like, hey, I'm from Costa Rica, but I'm currently here in Texas. I've traveled back and forth. So how does this work? And getting all the details. She got extremely excited. And she's like, oh, that's so cool. Someone from Costa Rica. Yes, you should come. These are the details. And I was like, okay, I think I can make it. So I started planning. I went back to Costa Rica. And then the walk was, and again, I'm never going to forget it because it was my grandma's birthday, so I couldn't spend the birthday with her because I wanted to go to the walk. So I flew from Costa Rica to Dallas on March 24th. I had a layover, like an overnight layover in Dallas, which makes sense because I had a place to stay. And then Saturday, I took my flight from Dallas to Houston. The walk was scheduled from 12, I think, to 3 p.m. I got to the airport at, I think it was like 11:30. Important thing to mention, until that day, that day was my first time driving in the U.S. all by myself. I got to the airport, rented a car, got in the car, put Google Maps, and drove myself from the airport to Discovery Green Park in Houston, Texas. I made it to the walk late, of course, because I got lost. And in the US, if you don't live in the US and you're listening to this, if you miss an exit, that's it. It could take you 20 minutes for the next exit. So that happened to me. That's how I learned. But yeah, I made it to the walk. That's where I met mostly, I think most of the staff from the foundation was there. And of course, Owen and his family. I told him my story, that it was my first, like he was the first person I knew with Marfan. Dominga was there too. I think she's been here in the podcast as well. So they were my first contact, or the first people I met with Marfan syndrome. And that's when I was 28, 29, I want to say. Thereafter, I told them my story. They mentioned conference. And I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. They gave me all the information, like this is the cost, and we try to do it in different states every year. It's a huge community. You should try to make it. And I was like, well, yeah, I'm going to try. Like it's a whole effort, like it's flight tickets, it's accommodations, it's like a lot, right? And then when we were saying our goodbyes, the Gray family, Rod Gray actually, the dad came to me and he was like, you know what? You got a sponsorship for this conference. So you just have to take care of your flight tickets and make it to Atlanta. And I was like,
that's so sweet.
What? But for me, it was weird. Like I just met this family and they want to sponsor my conference. I was like, that's weird. But then I understood, like with time, that that's how the community works. They will do anything and everything to help you. And that's something that I will never forget. It was a really nice gesture. And that's how I got involved with the community, basically. I don't know, for some reason, they all got very excited or found it really, I don't know, interesting that I was from Costa Rica, that I was speaking English and so fluently, I guess, and that I speak Spanish as well. But yeah, that was my first conference, and it has a really special place in my heart. I'm really excited that 2025 is going to be in Atlanta again. This is going to be like full circle for me. And that's when I met all my friends, like every person that I call my friend from the Marfan community was in that conference. And they've become longtime friends. Like no matter the distance, no matter, like I can just send them a message. Even the doctors, that's where I met Dr. Liang, and he's become my head doctor basically. And he's always like, okay, you get your echoes done there, but you send them to me so I can check them and make sure that you're actually fine. If I'm feeling something different, palpitations or something, I text him and he gets back to me. And he's in California and I'm here in Costa Rica. So it's great. It's great to have that community support, that, you know, like I have my friends here, but at the end of the day, they're not dealing with this. There might be some things that they wouldn't understand. So having this community that I know that I can call, I can message, I can go visit. I've been visiting everyone. I've been all around the US because I've met people from everywhere. And I think that's why people think that I live in the US, because they always see pictures of me like everywhere. But it's just that our community is amazing. And I'm really, that's, again, it shifted something in me. There is one Betsy before conference and another Betsy after conference, for sure.
I can find that very relatable. The community is just so amazing, and there's something so special about getting together with people who have dealt with or are dealing with the same kind of things that you're dealing with. And it's like, it's not even the whole thing. It's just, it's so hard to put words to that feeling when you first meet somebody. Like for me, when I meet somebody with VEDS, and now it's kind of expanded to Marfan and Loeys-Dietz too.
Yeah.
I feel like it's just a big family. And I'm so glad that you got to go to that first conference and just you're so involved now. So what are some of the things that you've done since you've gotten involved that you're really proud of? Or
yes, well, a lot. Well, first of all, that conference happened, I went back to Texas, and a couple days after, I got a call from the foundation, and they were asking questions like, what did you think about this? Do you think you will come back? And I was like, what? Of course, I'm going to try to come back every year if I can. Like, I'm going to apply for sponsorships, or I'm going to do whatever it's needed to come back every single year. I'm not going to. No, you're stuck with me now. I am coming every year. And a few months after that, I received an email from staff member with these ideas they have for the Spanish community. Because, the Marfan Foundation is great as a whole, but most of the resources, most of the information is in English. And we found out after years that there is a lot of people that speak Spanish, within the U.S. and of course outside the U.S. that are affected by Marfan syndrome and do not have access to resources in their native language. So they were proposing to have this online event for people speak Spanish. Of course, it will be in Spanish, but that will mean that I have to have a partnership with people at the foundation and work it together to translate documents, to translate templates, and to everything, right? Getting doctors that speak Spanish that are really knowledgeable in Marfan syndrome. All that logistic. Well, I didn't get the doctors. That was a foundation job, let's say, but I helped translating some of the media resources, marketing stuff, also sharing my story, sharing experiences, telling people how important and how valuable the community, having that support of a community is. All of that helped us to draft this amazing Spanish summit that happened. The first one happened, if I'm not mistaken, in 2022. Because after COVID, I've lost track of time. I think it was 2022.
Yeah.
So that's when we had the first Spanish summit. It was a success. It was really stressing for me because I am a shy person. And I get really nervous when I have to speak in front of big groups of people, even if it's online. And I could see it was in Zoom, and I was able to see how many people attended. And it was 100, 120, 90, 130 again. And I was like, oh my gosh. So for that summit, I was basically the host. I was presenting the doctors, then I was leading the Q&A. Also, I shared my experience with them. And then after that first summit, I actually got an award from the foundation. That was really nice in California in 2023. And that's when I found out that they were planning to continue doing this. So we started planning 2023 summit. It was easier because we already had experience from the previous one, lessons learned, and why not? And again, another success and bigger, reaching out to populations in Europe, like people from Spain, people from South America, a lot of people from Argentina, Peru, Panama, Mexico, a lot of people from Mexico, even Costa Rica. I didn't know I've always knew there is people here with Marfan syndrome.
Yeah.
But I started to get messages, and this is funny because I'm pretty reserved with my personal life and social media. All my profiles are private and stuff. But I started to get messages like this, requests from people that I didn't know, with messages like, hey, we saw you from the Marfan Foundation. I think my son has Marfan. All of that, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is creating an impact. And it was in Facebook, it was in Instagram. So of course I started to go to the foundation. Here are the links. Then the foundation put this amazing feature in the website in which you can translate the documents to, I don't know how many languages they have available right now, but the Spanish is in there. So some of the resources are in Spanish. And it's been really fulfilling. And I always, when I received my award, that's something that I wanted to emphasize, that this community gave me purpose in life. Like, I kept questioning, like we were talking when I was a teenager, and like I didn't understand why I was different. But after the first conference, I understood everything and was like, okay, yes, this is my purpose. I want to make this my purpose, to help people, to get them to the right doctors, to save lives, basically, because I was blessed to get my diagnosis when I was really little, and that saved my life. But some people are not in the same situation, and I would do anything to help our community. So I've been involved with everything, with all things Spanish, but also in conferences, they've asked me to share my story on how to live a successful life. Because like I said, I have a normal job, I go to the gym, and again, all of this is because I have the approval for my doctors, right? I go to the gym, I have a regular job, like I travel solo, and great experiences with friends, with family. I hike. I have 4 dogs that keep me busy every single day. I go to the park, I run with them. Like, it's just a matter of a mindset, I guess. Your mind is really powerful. So if you have a positive mindset, you'll see things better than focusing on the negatives. But yeah. And right now, that's how I am helping or being involved with the foundation with all the Spanish. And also, I do videos and stuff. I like TikTok and dances.
That's so cool.
So yeah, that's basically it.
That's so wonderful.
Thank you.
That's so wonderful. It's an incredible impact. And that's something that, will continue to help people for a long time. That's really, really wonderful. Do you have something that you want medical professionals to take away from this episode or from your story with Marfan, or something that you want them to be knowledgeable about with Marfan?
Yes. I think the main thing that I would like to tell medical professionals is to fully listen and respect what your patients tell you. We understand, and I think everyone understands, that there are hundreds of different syndromes out there, and that it's almost impossible for them to know all of them and all the symptoms and signs for all of them. But before dismissing something a patient is telling you, at least do some research. Please, Google it. At least, please don't tell them, oh no, that's in your head. You're normal. You don't have anything. No, that's not true. Because not everyone is affected the same way. In my case, it's obvious for a doctor that I have Marfan because I have all the physical features, right? But I've learned through conference that there are people out there that have Marfan that do not have the physical features, that have the heart condition, but not the long arms, long legs, right? And they have heard the stories that they have encountered situations in which, because they do not have the physical features, the doctor would just dismiss, like, no, you don't have it. You don't have the physical features. It's just like a normal heart condition. So that's what I will tell them, like, fully listen and respect your patient. And also, it goes both ways, right? The best advocate for oneself is oneself. Knowledge is power. So get educated in your medical conditions. And when a doctor tries to dismiss what you're saying, you can challenge the response. And if they do not want to educate themselves, you can help them. And I've done it. So it's not an easy thing to do, but sometimes it's needed. So I would really appreciate if they just listen and respect and do some research, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's so important. So important. And thank you for, to the medical professionals who do listen to this podcast. And thank you for listening and being educated and spreading that awareness and education to other people you know. It really can make a huge difference for our community. And thank you, Betsy, for coming on and sharing your story with Marfan with me and everybody.
Of course, it's a pleasure. I hope that my English was good. I think it's a good English day today. So it was a pleasure. Thank you so much. I feel really honored.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to this episode featuring Betsy Matarrita sharing her story with Marfan syndrome. If you're ready to meet others, get involved, or need support, there are links for you in the episode show notes, and there are always events going on in different areas around the country. I know quite a few people are heading to Portland, Oregon for the symposium on May 11th, and I'm going to try to make it to that one too. And of course, Reds for VEDS Day is also right around the corner in May. There's a link in the episode show notes for the VEDS Collaborative Natural History Study, a research study led by Dr. Shireen Shalhoub at OHSU, open to people with VEDS, Marfan, Loeys-Dietz, and similar connective tissue conditions. If you like this show, be sure to share it on social media or give it a rating or review. You can also support the production of this podcast by joining my Patreon. As always, my top tier patrons are listed in the episode show notes. Next week, we'll talk to Deb Kruk, who was diagnosed with VEDS in her 60s in 2022, following the loss of her 40-year-old son to an aortic dissection. They did not know that he had VEDS before this event, and she's joining to share his story and her own. See you soon.